Hello everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel Forensic Hunt. So today in this video I am going to tell you about the metabolism of bilirubin, or you can say the destruction of RBC, that is how the destruction of RBC took place within our body. So the first question that will arise within your mind is, why are we studying this topic? So if you go with the application of forensic, we used to examine fecal stain, that is feces, right? So for the examination of feces, the thing which you go for the analysis is urobilinogen. This thing, the urobilinogen, is present within the feces. Okay. So first of all, you should be aware that how this urobilinogen used to be produced within our body, and that's what we are going to study in this video. And in the next video, I'm going to tell you about that how the analysis of the feces could be done. Okay. So I'll start with the block diagram, that is how the production of this will take place and what is the pathway. So if you go with the destruction of RBC, what is RBC? I hope you already know that RBC is the red blood cells. So these are the red blood cells which are present within the blood and is responsible for the red color, right? So if you go with the lifespan of RBC, it has a lifespan of 4 to 120 days. Once they are done with their lifespan, so first of all, RBC is going to disintegrate in reticuloendothelial system, and after that it is the byproduct which would be formed upon disintegration. Those byproducts are going to pass into the blood, and in the blood, along with another protein, they will associate and then transfer to the liver. In the liver, they are further processed, they are further oxidized, and then they are transferred to the intestine, and from the intestine they would be excreted out into the feces. So how much amount? 80% of the amount of those byproducts would be excreted into the feces, and rest of the 20% would be absorbed back to the blood. From the blood, 2%, you can say 2% of the byproducts transport to the kidney, and from the kidney it will be filtered out into the urine. The byproduct which is formed in the intestine, 80% would be excreted into the feces, 2% into the urine, and rest of the 18% is going to go back to the liver through enterohepatic circulation. So now what am I going to do is, I am going to elaborate each block, that what happened exactly in each block one by one. So you just memorize that first is RES, then blood, liver, intestine, and then kidney, and here from intestine through excretion and urine. So first of all, I'll start with the RES system, that is reticuloendothelial system. What is reticuloendothelial system? First you should be aware of it. So reticuloendothelial system is also called as monocyte macrophages system. So let's suppose there is a blood vessel. This is a blood vessel. In this blood vessel, the blood would be circulated throughout the body. There are a number of things that would be circulated within the blood, but I'm here going to focus which is important for this system. So the main thing that is the part of the system is the monocytes. So let's suppose there are a number of monocytes which are present within the blood, and what happened, these blood vessels are lined up with some tissues. So let's say these are the tissues which are lining these blood vessels. So what happened, these monocytes are going to diffuse into this peripheral tissues, the lined tissues, and then here upon diffusion they are going to form a macrophage. And the function of this macrophage is to go for the process of phagocytosis whenever it is going to encounter any sort of foreign body. These monocytes along with macrophages, along with some endothelial cells, is going to form a system which is called as reticuloendothelial system. So this is the reticuloendothelial system, and this system is present in a number of areas. For example, this system is present in skin. This system is also present in lungs. This system is also present in lymph, and also in the liver. So this is the system where the destruction or deterioration or disintegration of the RBC will take place at first. First of all, you should be aware that what is RBC. RBC is the red blood cells and it has the abundance of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a protein which is present in the RBC that aids in the transportation of the oxygen. So RBC contain a protein which is called as hemoglobin, and this hemoglobin is composed of two things. One is the heme group and the other is the globin, and this globin is the protein. So once this macrophage is going to digest the RBC, it is going to disintegrate the hemoglobin which is present in the RBC into heme and globin. Now this globin is going to disintegrate into the amino acids which is going to further used in the later process of the production of proteins. And now this heme is again comprised of two things. One is the ferrous ion and the other is the pyrrole ring. So what happened here? These all things are going to happen within the macrophage. Okay, so a macrophage is going to engulf the RBC. It is going to disintegrate into the heme and globin, and then globin is going to convert into the amino acids, and that could be further used for the protein synthesis. And heme group is composed of two things. One is the ferrous ion and the other is the pyrrole ring. So this ferrous ion is going to be converted into the, first of all, into the ferric ion. Why is it going to convert into the ferric ion? Because the transportation of ferrous will take place only in the ferric form. Okay, so once it is converted into the ferric ion, it is going to be transferred with the help of a protein which is called as transferrin protein. So transferrin protein is going to transport this thing into the target area. The target area could be the lungs, could be the spleen, or another target areas could be there. So once it will reach to the target area, so let's say this is the target area. First of all, this Fe3 plus ion is going to change into Fe2 plus, because for the storage of this element used to take place in the ferrous state. So it is going to convert back to the ferrous ion, and then it will store as ferritin. Okay, and whenever there is a need of this ferritin ion for any process, that is, let's say for the production of RBC itself, so this ferritin first would be converted into Fe3, and then with the help of transferrin it would be transported for the respective area. Okay, this is the thing that happens to the ferrous ion. Now the next thing is pyrrole. This pyrrole ring is going to oxidize to a structure called as biliverdin, and this biliverdin is green in color, so it has a green pigmentation, and then this biliverdin is further oxidized to a product which is called as bilirubin, and this bilirubin is yellow in color, and this bilirubin is also called as unconjugated bilirubin because it is free bilirubin. It is not attached or linked to any of the other product, so that's why it is free bilirubin, and this is insoluble in water. This whole thing which I have just explained used to take place in the reticular system. So once this free bilirubin has been formed, so the next thing is this free bilirubin would be transported to the blood. So the next, in the block diagram, if you can remember, so the next product is the blood. Within the blood there is a protein which is called as albumin. This free bilirubin is going to link with the albumin to form a free bilirubin albumin complex. Now once this albumin has been associated with the bilirubin, it is still unconjugated, and this complex is going to transport into the liver. And what happened in the free bilirubin would be transported into the liver from the blood. So this free bilirubin is going to get conjugated with a molecule which is known as glucuronic acid. So this conjugation used to take place in the presence of an enzyme. The name of the enzyme is glucuronil transferase. So this enzyme is going to transfer the glucuronic acid to the bilirubin to form a product which is called as bilirubin diglucuronide or monodiglucuronide. So this product which is formed upon the conjugation, this is called as conjugated bilirubin, and this is soluble in water, and this is again also called as bile. So this bile, once the formation of bile will take place inside the liver, then it is stored in the gallbladder, and it would be released whenever there is a need of digestion of the food in the duodenum. So it would be released in the duodenum, and it helps in the emulsification of fat, that is for the digestion of the fat in the food. Digestion will take place, and then further this bile is going to transport to the large intestine, and in the large intestine there are a number of bacteria, and they show some bacterial actions to the bile. So what happened here, the conjugated bilirubin is there, and it will get deconjugate with the action of the bacteria, and it will convert it to the urobilinogen. Okay, bilinogen which is present in the large intestine first convert into the stergobilinogen, and it could be oxidized to the stergobilin. This stergobilin is the compound that provides the brown color to the feces. So in feces, both of these compounds used to be present. So in this pathway, 80% of the urobilinogen which is present in the large intestine would be consumed, while the rest of the 20% will get reabsorbed to the blood, and from the blood it is going to circulate into the liver through a system called as enterohepatic circulation. So 18% of the urobilinogen is going to transfer back to the liver through the enterohepatic circulation, whereas the 2% of this urobilinogen is going to pass to the kidney through the blood circulation, and the kidney is going to filter out the rest of the 2% urobilinogen to the urine. So in urine as well, urobilinogen is present apart from the feces. I hope this video aids in the better understanding of the bilirubin metabolism, and if you have any doubt you can ask in the comment box, and if you like this video please subscribe our channel. Thank you.